My name is Srikanth Iyengar. Uh, I'm a professor at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln. I'm originally from India, but I've been working in the US now I've been living in the US now for almost 18 years. I was born in India, as I said, and I studied for the first 21 years of my life in India until I got my undergraduate degree. And then I went to the US for a master's and a PhD at Purdue University. And then I finished my PhD, then I took multiple postdoctoral positions. One of them was in England for 2 years. I was in Sheffield for 2 years. And then I returned to the US, then I changed jobs, and finally now I'm at the University of Nebraska. I work in something called commutative algebra. So at the end of the day, what I'm looking at are things called polynomial equations. And you're given a set of equations, and there are various, at the end of the day, you want to solve the equations. And commutative algebra, and which is closely tied to algebraic geometry, is one way of studying the solutions by looking at the structure of the set of solutions. So for me, it's the fact that you're always learning something new. So it's every day one. I mean, of course, it doesn't happen every day that you learn something astounding, but it's always an incremental process. Every day it brings you something new. Of course, there's a lot of difficulty and frustration involved, but I think that adds to the pleasure of discovery. At the very basic level, just interacting with young people who are interested and enthusiastic, that's always refreshing and gives you a lot of energy. But also trying to explain things to somebody, or trying to explain your view of things to somebody, and and being able to help other people understand some things, that's a pleasure in itself. As a student, certainly so the one thing that was easy for me was when I was in India, I got my degree in computer science. Whereas when I went to the US, I studied mathematics. So this changing from one subject to the other is much easier in the US. Of course, the reason I went to the US because I wanted a change. But in the end, I think it was a good decision for me because there was a lot more avenues, a lot more opportunities mathematically. I was in a department where there were 80 faculty members doing essentially anything in mathematics. But that was only one part of the story. So at least the nicest thing about the US is that you'll encounter people from all over the world. So I have friends from, anywhere. I mean, I met Japanese, Chinese, people from Europe. I mean, people from everywhere in the world you meet, and then you interact with them as a student, which is quite different when you grow up. It's much different interaction. So I think as a way of expanding not just your mathematical, but also cultural and human horizons, I think an education in the US is a wonderful experience. So I have not really interacted much with grad students here. I've been only here 2 weeks. Today is exactly 2 weeks since I came to Osaka, and I've not. But that's not I've not interacted with students in Osaka, but I have interacted with graduate students from elsewhere. I've met them at conferences, and they're certainly much better prepared than most other graduate students from most other countries I've seen. They're different. They seem to be they seem a lot more motivated, and they're much better prepared in general. What has helped me is to focus on the mathematics and let other things take care of themselves. I mean, not let it overload it with other problems in life. Yeah. Certainly for me, it has been wonderful. I've been only here for 2 weeks, but I've had an opportunity to speak quite a lot with Professor Kato, and then she also organized a conference last week, a small meeting here where she brought people from other universities, and she gave me an opportunity to talk about my work. And I had a series of 3 lectures last week, So that has been wonderful for me. I've never done this where I could speak without worrying about time or, you know, so for me it's been very interesting, of course mathematically, but also socially to be here in Japan.